Hi everyone, it has been what seems like almost an eternity since the big Path of Exile 2 endgame reveal that we have probably watched. If you haven't, then I recommend you go check it out. I will link this down in the description. This is the official live stream from the content reveal, and it was really hype. It seems like everyone is going to switch to this game, including a lot of Diablo creators. For example, myself, I have been very hyped to see Path of Exile 2 for a long time, and what they are showing us just seems to be getting better and better. Since then, and also before that, I've been doing a lot of research, probably like 5 to 10 hours daily or so. I've been soaking up all the information. I've watched basically every little bit of gameplay out there that people have been posting, including myself, if you want to watch some of my own gameplay from Gamescom, for example, and various other events where people posted their videos. And I've watched all the interviews, I read up on all the mechanics, so I'm just trying to be as prepared as possible for this launch, because I really want to dive in and, go ham, try to compete, try to go on hardcore and these kind of things. So I'm very excited, and this definitely seems like a game that is made for someone like me. And it looks like a lot of people are extremely hyped for this. So I want to put things a little bit more into perspective, because as cool as everything seems, there is also, things to consider at the very least that will just not please everyone. And the game is not designed to do that. But on the other hand, I can only say it is definitely worth a try, even if you think that the difficulty might be too high or if the game might become too complex. I think that a lot of people really enjoy just how this game is built and the high quality of the game. We've also lately seen some people that actually had review and like media access. There was a bit of drama around this, but the TLDR of that is that people have been playing the game a lot more than others that were just like able to like log in for like a few hours, like myself, for example, at Gamescom, and some other content creator events that only lasted like an afternoon or so. But some people have actually been playing through the entire campaign, including the end game. And we have actually recently seen some more information kind of pop up here. And it just seems like it's getting better and better. This even goes so far that many of the established, for example, Diablo creators like myself also seem to be excited to at least try out Path of Exile, or just like, dive right in. So I would definitely expect that PoE 2 is going to siphon quite a lot of, especially content creator landscape, but also probably the player base from, for example, Diablo 4, which is currently by far probably the biggest ARPG out there in terms of like, at least like monthly active users, for example. I do expect that, for example, Path of Exile 2 is gonna catch up significantly, maybe even overtake that, at least, during the peak times. So I guess we'll see. In the end, we have to remember these are seasonal games, so there's always like a big wave at the season start. There's always a flattening out towards the end, and then rinse and repeat, basically. So this is just how these games work. They're not designed or intended to be played all day, every day, forever. And what this means is that a lot of the creators will probably also jump back and forth between this and other games, at least in the long run. So myself included, I don't want to abandon, for example, Diablo 4 just yet entirely. Of course, right now everyone's eyes are on PoE 2. Diablo 4 is kind of like a bit washed out, with like the expansion launch being like months in the past now, and the new season far away. So it's actually the perfect time also to jump into PoE 2 for anyone, since there's just nothing else in the landscape. But I also expect there's going to be maybe other people from like, outside of the ARPG genre actually jumping in, because it seems like there is quite a bit of overlap with, for example, Souls-like games here. This is also something that other people have mentioned in, like some of the review videos that I saw, for example, that it just feels like this is a bit like a Dark Souls or an Elden Ring. This is also kind of the impression that I have gotten back from first time I ever saw this game, and more and more with all of the interviews and that, for example, Jonathan Rogers has given about their intentions in the design, also the gameplay. It looks like these are, for example, low, long, difficult boss fights that you do constantly, and it definitely reminds very much of these Soul-like games. Also, for example, mechanics where if you die, you fail the map and you cannot actually access it another time, for example, in the end game when you run maps, or when you die in the campaign, you actually everything respawns around you, or you also have to do all the bosses in one go because they will reset when you die. So there are these kind of mechanics that definitely remind a lot more of a game that is like much more mechanically demanding. And that is also something that is really up my alley personally. Like, you guys know me, I love these challenges. I love trying to compete for rank 1s. I've been doing this for literally a decade in Diablo at least, and I'm very excited to see how this will go in Path of Exile. I guess somewhat recently we also had the last Epoch launches, which has been going really well for myself. For example, I got the world first hardcore 100 rogue on last Epoch launch, and then, for example, the second in the world on the Aberroth kill and these kind of things. So I'm definitely excited to try out, these tough challenges, trying hardcore in this game. Yeah, I know a lot of people also in my community are excited for this kind of stuff. So I think just like gameplay wise and like the, like the engagement level that this game demands is, above anything else in the RPG genre in terms of, just like how much focus you need, how much you actually have to, like focus on the mechanics of the monsters, of the bosses, of, anything that is going on. Try to do the combos with your abilities. And I think that alone is going to be really cool to see and like really a big breath of fresh air. Now, on the other hand, I can also understand a lot of people are not looking for something like that, and they actually enjoy the much more laid-back approach that, for example, Diablo 4 provides, or even last Epoch, I guess, where it's just kind of like, you log in and you blast, and the difficulty level is relatively low, and you don't really have to worry all the time about dying constantly, or even if you die, then you can just kind of keep going forward, from the recent checkpoint or something like that. And this is all not the case in Path of Exile 2. So this is something also to remember here. For me, this is actually what I want. I actually like the harder difficulty, but other people might not. However, the good part about Path of Exile is also that the more you know about the game, the more you can also kind of make up, for example, for your lack of mechanical skills. And the knowledge is also a big part of the game. Understanding builds, being able to theory craft a good build, or min-max your build is going to be like an equally important part of your success in this game. So it's not just about that, playing it, but also how do you build your character? What are you going for? How do you use your currency in a smart way when you're trading, for example, and all these kind of things. And then lastly, of course, understanding the endgame systems themselves. Like, for example, what can you farm to get a certain thing? There's going to be like a certain target farming and certain like exclusive rewards from some of the endgame contents, for example, that we have seen here previewed, for example, like the breach that we see here. And this is another layer of your success in Path of Exile 2, which means that you definitely have to invest some time into learning all of these things, but you also get rewarded, and then league by league you're also going to improve as a player. You're going to get faster at the campaign, you're going to understand the bosses better. And personally, I'm very much looking forward to that, to just also feeling this personal growth with the game, basically, where it's not just about playing a better build or pressing our buttons in the right order, but it's also about just kind of like getting through the campaign faster, because I now know all the zones, and I know the layouts, and I know what the bosses do, and how I can use my DPS windows a little bit better, and these kind of things. So while a lot of people are, for example, moaning about the mandatory campaign playthrough on every single character, and I hear people constantly asking, oh man, I want a campaign skip, why do I want to do this again and again? This is part of what you should also consider, which is that the campaign actually provides you a viable way of growing as a player, of getting better at the game. And I think in the long run, this will actually feel relatively decent. And in addition, the campaign is also more replayable, I would say, than, for example, Diablo 4's campaign. There is, skips, like you can go through zones, you don't have to actually talk to dialogue and talk to the NPCs. And you can just go and kill a certain boss, and then you get the reward for that quest immediately. There is no like forced cutscenes every 20 seconds. And compared to, for example, Diablo 4's campaign, there is, it's like much more like open and just like progression oriented and designed to be replayed as well. Whereas, for example, Diablo 4's campaign or Diablo 3's campaign, they're just not really replayable. You know the story, and then you understand the lore, and that's really about it. And of course, it makes much more sense to skip campaign in Diablo 4, which is like mostly focused on the storytelling and not so much on actually like, going through the acts, defeating bosses, kind of like challenging the character that you are building and the build that you're playing, and, for example, also progressing your character. You get a lot of permanent power boosts, for example, for defeating a lot of the optional bosses that will actually help you later in the end game. So you are actually progressing your character, not just in levels, but in like overall like in-game progression already. Another thing to consider is that this game will also seemingly never really speed up a lot. So even if you're looking at, for example, endgame previews here that we see from like the endgame reveal, or also just like from what you have seen from some of those review videos, for example, and just like all of the gameplay that I've seen, there doesn't seem to be like, for example, any noticeable amount of like movement speed as like a buff or something, cooldown reduction, even attack and cast speed, for example, seem to be relatively rare and not available in very large quantities. So it seems like GG has really focused on kind of keeping this core part of the gameplay, like combo focused play style, you know, back and forth with the enemies, dodging big slams and these kind of things as you know, a very integral part of the experience. And I think they have to as well. So anyone who expects that this is going to become like a power creep galore experience where, you know, league after league, that's going to keep adding more and more mechanics and you're going to get stronger and stronger and faster, I don't actually expect that to happen. At least not in such a meaningful way that would actually really distance the you know, future game of Path of Exile 2 from what we're gonna see now. I can definitely expect there's gonna be buffs and nerfs and whatever, and maybe generally the game might become slightly easier or more accessible, especially once we learn more about the game and we have better builds and better guides and all these kind of things. But in the long run, I do not expect that there's gonna be anywhere close to, for example, the transformation that Diablo 4 has done from, you know, going from like a 100+ hour grind to like a 5-hour grind to get to max level, for example. I don't really think that is gonna happen, and the game will actually remain difficult and slow all throughout, because this is really the entire basis. This is like what makes this game actually stand out compared to anything else out there. And if they ever try to like power creep it too much, I think they'll also have to rein it in again very soon after. It's simply that the foundation of the combat is based on these combos and using different abilities at certain times, and, you know, setting up a bigger nuke with like 1 or 2 abilities before actually doing the thing. And this is also why we just can't really have like a huge like increase in the gameplay speed. I think it will remain very slow, methodical, and tactical when it comes to the gameplay, and will also constantly require all of your attention and all your focus. For example, defenses are something that I do not expect to rise significantly, for example, with like future updates or something. There may be new tools that we can use to increase our defenses. There's already a lot of stuff in there. And the, you know, kind of like high incoming damage also really helps to, you know, give the game its feel of, you know, danger and, you know, this oppressive atmosphere basically that you constantly feel when you know, fight the boss, when you go through those catacombs and there's like hordes of monsters and they're trying to like, you know, surround you and get you stuck, and then eventually you die, for example. And I don't really expect we're going to get many tools to actually build out our defenses. On the entire passive skill tree, for example, there is barely any extra life nodes. There are other defenses that you can build into, but it seems like they are very closely regulating the amount of total defense you can build, at least to like a reasonable degree, without giving up, you know, all of your damage output at least. Now, I do expect we're going to find some pretty crazy stuff that is, you know, overpowered, that, you know, either does too much damage or is just like invincible. So I think on both sides there might be some extremes that we're gonna see, but GG also seems to be quite interested in keeping that balance and potentially just, you know, mega nerfing something. They're not afraid of doing that. So looking at the PoE 1 history, for example, maybe they will wait until the end of the league, but they definitely do nerf a lot of stuff, and they don't necessarily just buff things like it happens in, for example, Diablo. And that also brings me back to the comparison to, for example, Diablo 4. I think that, you know, as big as the launch is going to be, there's probably going to be a significant portion of players that just can't really handle it. But as I said, I would definitely invite everyone to accept the challenge at least and try it out, because I think that GG is making probably the greatest release that we have ever seen so far. A lot of people say it is like the best RPG since Diablo 2, and maybe even surpasses it and these kind of things. And yeah, there's like these like, you know, old school Diablo 2 enjoyers, for example, that still cling on to that. But we also can appreciate that the game and the genre is moving forward. And it definitely looks like they are going to deliver like, you know, the biggest release that, you know, comes with actually pretty fleshed out endgame, something that Diablo 4 is still pretty much liking up to this day, to be honest. And it does have like various systems in the game now, but there's still like this, lack of, something to strive for, some challenges that, you actually want to try to beat with your character once it's decked out and so on. And PoE 2 actually comes with that right from the get-go, and this is just the early access. So overall, it's just looking like there is a lot of stuff to do, a lot of things to learn. It is engaging, it is fun, especially for people that like a challenge, that like to dive deep into a game like that. But I can also see that this will overwhelm people. They will probably have to stick to other games as well. For example, I cannot imagine that GGG would dial back a lot on their like existing design philosophy of actually making the game what it is with those tough challenges and the hard combat and so on, just to, for example, increase their numbers or, become more popular. I think this is not what they are seeking. They want to just make the game that, they want to make. This is something that they enjoy. And this is definitely a quite polar opposite from, for example, the Diablo games. With that being said, though, I think there's definitely room to enjoy PoE 2 casually as well. Even if you don't play all that much, at the very least, if you have the general understanding of the game and, how to make a successful build and so on, I think you can still get somewhere once the game is out and once you've actually, seen everything and so on. It will just take quite a bit more effort to actually get into the game, learn everything, but this can be handled as well, I believe, for most people. But you also have to see that, if you have very little time to play, then PoE 2 might just kind of like not allow you to really get anywhere outside of like, maybe a very low-end content. This is definitely not like in Diablo 3 or Diablo 4 where people blast on like the season start weekend, then you're basically done with your character and, you have all the challenges completed. You have the season journey completed. You cannot really face any other challenge in the game anymore besides maybe going a little bit higher in the pit or the good areas or something like that. In PoE, there's actually more things to strive for, higher versions of like boss fights that are really tough already on the base level, I imagine, and all these kind of things to go for. For me personally, it will be exciting to see what Blizzard is going to do in order to respond to this, because I think both GG and maybe Blizzard have been taken a bit by surprise by, this amount of like hype that is present right now. And I do expect that to continue for quite a while as the patches roll in and then the leagues reset in the early access and then new classes are being introduced and all these kind of things. There's still a lot of stuff missing that GG has promised to deliver in the next something like 6 to 12 months until the actual launch of the game. And then we start getting even more stuff with the league being introduced and so on. So yeah, it's going to be quite exciting to see where this will go. I think in general, we have a really good time ahead of us for the PoE enjoyers, for the Diablo enjoyers, or for those that are both, like myself, for example. And I just wanted to kind of give you an impression of what I believe it's going to look like for the near future. So as, most people are memeing with D4 bad, D4 dead, and these kind of things, I don't think this is necessarily true. Of course, the more engaged blasters and the people that really seek like a more hardcore experience, and like an actually fleshed out endgame, they will keep saying that stuff. And I think a lot of people will still really enjoy what Diablo is as well. Some people like me will also enjoy both. For now, my eyes are definitely set on Path of Exile. I'll be blasting this much more than D4, I imagine, because it just looks like it's going to be a great release. And then in the long term, I guess we'll see where this will go. For me personally, I'm also just so excited about the competitive scene that is actually established in Path of Exile already. And I've been really missing something like this in, for example, Diablo. Like, okay, we had like the pushing in Diablo 3 and stuff. That was kind of fun. And this is what I've been mostly basing my stream on and my career basically at this point. And then that kind of like came to a halt in like Diablo 4, where you just don't have really any competitiveness. And in PoE 2, we will have that. So for me, that's going to be like, this is exactly my domain basically, and I'm very excited to jump in there and compete alongside some of the other big blasters in the genre. So if there's any more things that you would like me to cover in specific, then let me know in the comments. Otherwise, keep an eye out for my uploads. I am planning to release a lot of guides, videos, clips, you name it, whenever the game launches. And also in preparation to that, I've also been putting out some things. I'm going to be talking about my plans for my builds, for example. Stay tuned for that. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you guys next time.